Imagine you're the son of a millionaire, raised in marble mansions, taught to respect others despite the wealth wrapped around your name. One day, you walk into your father's company, your legacy, only to be kicked out like a worthless servant by the very people hired to protect your family's name. Now imagine your father walking in and seeing it happen in real time. What he did next left the entire boardroom frozen and exposed a truth that would change their empire forever. You don't want to miss what happens next. Hit that subscribe button and buckle the legacy in the Sachegode. As the morning sun glared against the glass walls of Aldridge Enterprises, a billion-dollar tech conglomerate built from scratch by billionaire Raymond Aldridge, a self-made man who rose from a dusty mechanic garage to Forbes magazine covers and government tech contracts. His son, 24-year-old Noah Aldridge, wasn't raised the way most sons of billionaires were. Raymond believed in hard work, discipline, and proving oneself outside the shadow of privilege. Noah, despite having access to every luxury, chose to attend a public university, intern anonymously at startups, and never boasted about his last name. He wanted to build something on his own, not inherit. So when he finally joined Aldridge Enterprises, he did it under a different name, Noah Carter, a consultant hired in the R&D department. Only a few people in the inner circle knew who he truly was. He showed up to work in simple jeans and sneakers, working late, bringing coffee for his team, listening more than speaking. But not everyone saw his humility as strength. Franklin Mays, the arrogant head of operations and one of Raymond's most trusted executives, saw Noah's quiet presence as weakness. Franklin was used to people bowing to his influence in the company. When Noah respectfully questioned some of his risky decisions involving budget misreporting, Franklin didn't take it kindly. He began mocking Noah, publicly calling him the coffee boy, and subtly turning other managers against him. Franklin's latest target became an obsession: humiliate the kid so badly that he either quits or gets fired. One morning, Noah arrived early and found a suspicious email trail showing altered figures in a new acquisition deal. He printed them and brought them to the boardroom, hoping to raise concerns before irreversible decisions were made. Instead, Franklin stormed in, snatched the documents, accused Noah of breach of protocol, and yelled, "You don't belong in this room. Get out like the low-level intern you are." Security was called. In front of executives and interns alike, Noah was physically escorted out of the building, humiliated, heartbroken, but calm. He didn't resist. He just looked down, swallowed the shame, and walked out like a servant shooed from a palace his own father built. What no one realized at that moment was that Raymond Aldridge had just pulled into the company parking lot, and he saw it all through the glass doors. He didn't just see his son get dragged out, he saw the truth of who now controlled his empire. And the fire in his eyes promised that everything was about to change. Because this story will have you glued to the last. The storm behind closed doors. Raymond Aldridge stood frozen by the glass doors, watching his only son being ejected from the company he founded. It felt like time itself paused, his heart thudding in slow motion, rage and disbelief tightening around his chest like a steel cage. Raymond had built Aldridge Enterprises with the belief that loyalty and integrity mattered more than titles. He had given Franklin Mays the position of Q because he believed in his loyalty, unaware that the power had mutated Franklin into a corporate tyrant. Without saying a word to anyone, Raymond turned around, got back in his bulletproof Lincoln, and drove off, but not home. He drove straight to his private retreat, where he kept a safe stacked with hard copies of every executive's contract, internal whistleblower documents, and one backup server disconnected from the network, his insurance policy. He made a few quiet calls that night, to HR, to legal, and to two trusted retired friends, one a federal compliance officer, the other a forensic accountant. By sunrise, Raymond was back in the office. But not as the CEO. No, he had stepped down 6 months ago, making Franklin acting CEO. Raymond returned as the majority shareholder and chairman of the board. He entered the boardroom unannounced, briefcase in hand, and asked one question: "Where's the man who dragged my son out yesterday?" Silence fell. Franklin wasn't present. He had called in sick, probably celebrating what he thought was a victory. Raymond opened the briefcase, pulled out a thick file, and began laying out evidence of misappropriation, wire fraud, and manipulation of internal promotion structures, much of it directly implicating Franklin. Faces around the table turned pale, phones buzzed quietly. But Raymond wasn't done. "Yesterday, that low-level consultant you kicked out was my son," he said, voice steady. "He was here undercover by my request. I wanted him to see the culture for himself. You didn't just humiliate him, you exposed what this company has become." The silence was explosive. That afternoon, Raymond called a general assembly. The entire company packed into the auditorium. Noah stood in the back, still shaken. But Raymond spotted him and called him forward. "This is my son," he said into the mic. "And from this day on, anyone who treats a team member like less than family, no matter their title, is out." Effective immediately, Franklin Mays is terminated under criminal investigation. And effective now, Noah is your new chief culture officer, reporting directly to me. The crowd erupted, some in shock, some in applause, others in quiet reflection. But for Noah, it was never about power. It was about restoring dignity, not just for himself, but for every employee who had been treated like less than human. The rise of humiliated. Noah's first week as chief culture officer was not easy. He declined the luxury corner office, choosing instead to work from a glass desk in the middle of the open floor. He opened every meeting with employee stories of those who felt ignored, bullied, or overlooked. He initiated programs that rewarded kindness, mentorship, and ethical innovation. Meanwhile, Franklin's indictment gained media attention. News broke of years-long embezzlement and retaliation schemes he'd used to silence junior employees. Raymond didn't gloat. He cooperated with authorities, promising full transparency. The media, of course, went wild. Billionaire's son thrown out of his own empire, father's revenge reshapes corporate America. But Noah didn't care for headlines. He visited every department, spoke to janitors, interns, cafeteria workers. He initiated the one-day swap. Executives had to shadow a junior employee for a day. The results were powerful. Empathy bloomed where arrogance had lived. Then came the surprise twist. A mysterious email arrived in Raymond's private inbox, anonymous, encrypted, marked urgent. It contained audio files, recordings of Franklin speaking with outside investors, planning to sell off Aldridge's patents to a foreign competitor. One of the files even had Franklin mocking Raymond's health, saying, "Once the old man drops dead, the empire's mine." The betrayal ran deeper than anyone had known. Franklin hadn't acted alone. A secret board faction had supported his rise, hoping to split the company after Raymond's eventual retirement. Enraged, Raymond and Noah launched Operation Cleanhouse. Over the next 2 months, silent investigations revealed names: 5 board members implicated. They were fired, arrested, and banned from ever working in corporate leadership again. But one name on the list stunned Noah: Julia, his own godmother, a woman he'd trusted since childhood. She confessed with tears, saying she never imagined Franklin's greed would go that far. Noah, though heartbroken, made the painful decision to support her removal too. Justice, he believed, had to be impartial, even when at the new Empire 6. Months later, Aldridge Enterprises looked nothing like before. The walls that once echoed with fear now buzzed with innovation, collaboration, and mutual respect. Raymond officially handed over the company reins not to Noah alone, but to a newly formed triad council: Noah, Olivia Tran, a brilliant engineer who started as an intern, and Marcus Bell, a security officer who once stopped a data breach. They represented youth, grit, and loyalty. On the day of the public relaunch, Raymond addressed the world. "My legacy isn't buildings or patents, it's people," he said. "And I nearly lost it by trusting the wrong ones. But my son reminded me what matters." Noah then took the mic, nervous but steady. "I was kicked out of this place like I was nobody," he said. "But sometimes getting thrown out is the only way to learn who's really holding the door." The crowd roared. The stock value of Aldridge Enterprises rose to record highs. But more importantly, its reputation transformed from corporate coldness to an industry benchmark for ethical culture. Franklin? He sat behind bars, sentenced to 18 years in federal prison, still insisting he had it all figured out. The world moved on, and as for Noah, he never wore a suit. Still jeans and sneakers, still humble. But now, when he walked through the doors of Aldridge Enterprises, people didn't see the billionaire's son. They saw the man who helped fix what money alone could never buy: respect. And so, the story of the kicked-out son didn't end in disgrace. It began a revolution. One act of cruelty witnessed by a father changed the future of a company, and maybe, just maybe, reminded the world that power means nothing without purpose. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if this story moved you. Because sometimes, the quietest voice in the room ends up leading the loudest change.